Now being recorded.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Lisa Jonas. I'm Program Director for the Goering Center. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. I'd like to set the context for today's program by asking you a rhetorical question. And that is, where would we all be right now if not for technology? Personally, I would be packing up my things and heading out to Sharonville Convention Center because this was originally scheduled to be a luncheon. But fortunately, as part of the University of Cincinnati, the Goering Center team was able to slip right into a new way of working because we had a pretty phenomenal technology infrastructure in place ready to receive our migration right to an online environment. So we're very fortunate that way. And I would say on the spectrum of where we are, maybe we're in the middle, and there are certainly some companies who are much farther ahead of us in what they're doing. And then there are some laggards among us. So today's conversation is all about how we get that competitive advantage by equipping ourselves with the right technology investments. I would say that for the Goering Center, it's been a real differentiator. This is the 15th webinar we've done since mid-March. And on average, we are reaching about 30% of the people attending are non-members. So these are people who have had very limited exposure to us or perhaps none at all. So that has certainly opened us up and given us an opportunity to engage with people we wouldn't have been able to meet in our traditional environment. But there's still nothing that's going to replace the value of face-to-face interaction. And while the Goering Center will have an emerging set of offerings that include technology as we move forward into the next normal, we are still going to want to bring face-to-face environments back. So to get everybody familiar with the technology, what you've got in front of you, if you only see the slides and you're not seeing your presenter screens or the text box or the guest list or anything, you're in full expanded mode. So I'm going to ask you to go into, collapse out of the full screen mode, and you'll see a text box in the lower left-hand corner. And so to get us started today, because this is where you'll ask questions if you have a question for the panel, I have a question for all of you. And as you're thinking about, getting through the summer months, are you yet ready to return to what I would call a traditional Goering Center luncheon, happy hour, breakfast? Are you ready to come back to a face-to-face environment with the business community? And just simply type a simple yes or no, and I'm going to move on while you're doing that. And take a second to acknowledge our sponsors. Our Goering Center events are offered at free or very low cost to the business community at the generous offering of these three organizations: Ernst Young, EY, Frost Brown Todd, and PNC Bank. So we thank them and all of our sponsors always for supporting us. We have 36 corporate sponsors that are so important to our ability to operate. So we thank them. And before I move on to this panel or turn it over to Tracy, because Tracy is going to serve as our moderator today, I would just like to introduce you to her. She's a special person. She's been a member for several years now, volunteers with us in a variety of ways. But Tracy is the founder and president of T6 Group and executive director of the Circuit. So the Circuit, if you're not familiar, is a nonprofit IT association, and she brings to the Circuit more than 20 years of operations, technology, and sales experience, where she's helped organizations, large and small, build their business and improve their operations. So as I turn it over to Tracy this morning, Tracy, I have a question for you. And if you could share with our audience the perspective that you bring to this topic today.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm excited to be part of this panel. I think one of the things that I'm excited to be able to say I can bring some knowledge and some insight to folks is the fact that I had the opportunity to work for both very large companies that are IT providers like HP and Dell and EMC, as well as service providers like E&Y and CBTS. But I've also had the pleasure and experience of working for the small private family business. So being able to see and experience both sides of the coin and bring the what works really well and maybe some of the things that don't work so well for organizations, I hope can provide some insight and guide us through this conversation today. So I'm going to start with just a couple of words before I introduce the panel, and we'll jump right in and get their knowledge. But it's my personal opinion that technology can and should be a differentiator for you and for your business. It should make work easier. It should help you stand out in the minds of your competitors and provide outstanding customer service. Unfortunately, there are still a lot of organizations, as Elise alluded to, there are some that are, a little bit laggard, that view technology as a necessary evil and an expense on the P&L. And unfortunately, that methodology and that mindset can work, but it can be a hindrance to you when you hit a bump in the road or you meet a new competitor that's figuring out some ways to move forward. And so even though IT, there are parts of IT that are a utility, you have to have the foundation, you have to have the telecom, you have to have the basic servers and support. The good news is with so many things moving to cloud or as a service, you've got platform as a service, software as a service, infrastructure as a service. IT, the way it used to be, where you had to do all of those things yourself, now you can really leverage in a cost-effective manner those things as a service, which means you can get folks that love that piece, they have very deep knowledge in it, and they're able to share their experience that they're seeing from lots of different companies and environments with you. So you don't have to think about that utility part anymore. You can really focus on what do you do to make things differentiated for yourself to stand out in the marketplace and make the lives of your customers and your employees easier. So one of the things I've learned over the years is there's a rough generalization. There's kind of 3 IT mindsets out there. So one of them is the utility mindset, kind of this thermostat you're seeing in front of you. So with that utility mindset, that's like I said, that's the folks that are thinking about this is an evil, it's a necessary evil, an expense. I expect it to be there. I expect the email to work. I expect it to be fast. I want that application. I want to hit about 4 keys and have an answer. Again, there's nothing wrong with that mindset. It's just maybe not progressive and giving you the best results that you could want. The second mindset that's out there is what I call the shiny object. The folk that understand technology can do great things for them. They read a lot. They're talking to lots of people. They know there's new things coming out every day, and they see something that they're like, oh, that's great. That's the new customer relationship management CRM. Fix my sales and marketing. I'm going to install that. Or that's the new warehouse management solution, and that's the best thing since sliced bread. So I'm going to go get that. And so they jump into these new applications, and then as they get going, one of 2 things happens. They either have to make significant changes to their business to really optimize the value of that solution they're implementing, or they end up customizing that solution dramatically to fit the way their business works. The challenge with both of those means is that in the implementation process, if you're changing your business, becomes much harder. Or if you're doing a lot of customization, not only is the implementation delayed by that customization, but your ongoing support, enhancements, and opportunities are limited, because as that solution gets upgraded and enhanced, you can't just roll those in. You have to look at how that impacts all the customization that you've done. So you've often limited the availability and the opportunity that you had with that new application. In a lot of cases, I see folks, they move and all they've done is move the existing process to the new thing. So they're making all of the same business decisions, good and bad, just faster. So if you haven't done the right work up front, you may again not be getting the benefit. So the third IT mindset is that of the planner. And planner is the one that helps think up front. The challenge with the planner is, and I don't see as many people doing this as I'd like to, but I'm seeing a lot more starting to really realize it. And that the challenge is that it does take more time up front. They have to really think about what is the problem I'm trying to solve? How do I want that to look? Who is best equipped to give me input? They really leverage the employees at the point where the work is being done so that they get the right input in the right direction and the right opportunity. Now, if you're looking at a new warehouse management system, you need to be talking to the folks in the warehouse and the loading dock and all of those people that are really doing the work, because they can tell you where their pain is. So the planner is the one that can really help you spend a little more time up front, but really optimize the value of that new system and provide you with insights. So today we're excited to have you think about which one of these are you. Are you currently a utility, a shiny object mentality, or a planner? And I'm excited to say that our panel today really falls into the planner category, and I'm excited for them to share some insights for you. So I'd like to introduce the panel to you today. Ty Dubé is the Chief Operating Officer. Well, we have David up first, but I'm going to talk about Ty first. Chief Operating Officer of Mike's Car Wash, leading more than 515 team members across 26 retail locations and 2 support centers in 3 states. Ty is an experienced operational leader with a background in customer experience, operations, logistics, and engineering. He joined Mike's in January of 2018 after spending nearly 15 years with executive management and 6 years with GE aircraft engines prior to that. And during his time with executive jet management, he spent 5 years in China as president of NetJets China in Hong Kong, leading the establishment of NetJets' presence in Asia. Ty has a master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Cincinnati and a 6 Sigma Black Belt and Green Belt from GE aircraft engines. Matt Fisher is CEO of Curiosity Advertising. He's a top-tier creative and marketing executive with extensive experience in the world's leading marketing communications companies and agency management. Since co-founding Curiosity, the company has landed on the Inc. 5000's fastest-growing companies 4 years running. Matt's led creative campaigns for international brands, including Nabisco, AT&T, and TrueMove. And David Goodwin, a managing partner of ATC, has over 30 years of experience in telecom and IT. He has an unwavering commitment to listening to clients, and attention to detail, and a keen focus on long-term benefits. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to David and let you get us started on our discussion today.
All right, Tracy, thank you. There's a little quote up there by me. I think everybody can read. I might give them a second, and then if you would, just next slide, please. So I think we've seen there was an acceleration of moving to the cloud probably the last few years or so, but COVID-19, the coronavirus, I think we've seen a more of an acceleration or an explosion of moving to the cloud. You used to have things like everybody knew there were Microsoft, Office 365, maybe Salesforce, and some other applications that were in the cloud. But in today's world, with trying to work from home, I think you see there on the screen, sparked by the coronavirus pandemic, 40% of businesses are accelerating cloud adoption plans, according to CIO Dive. There's been just a mass migration to moving to the cloud, whether that be your phone system, it could be certain applications, servers, just a variety of things to give the people in your organization the ability to work from anywhere at any time. And in addition to that, you're now seeing things that are basically enterprise type capabilities that are at an affordable price for some of your SMBs. That's not something that we've seen. It certainly makes the cloud more scalable, more affordable, and more accessible anywhere you can get an internet connection. So next slide, please. So the cloud communications and work from home, I might have touched on that slightly on the screen before that, but if we look at that quote there, cloud communications, it's no longer a nice to have. As a leader, you've got to demand it. I'm not sure about that guy's grammar though. You've got, should be you have to demand it, but we'll roll with the one that's on the screen anyway. And I think just to put like something out there, we helped because we have so many customers that we've advised on, or clients that we've advised on cloud communications, that we moved as a small firm. We helped move 10,000 users for the ability to work out of home and have communications and phone system capabilities that they would have had if they were in the office. So the idea that people could take communications home and work like they were working pretty much with the same level of efficiency that they would from the office, I think it really helped impact those companies in a positive way, so that maybe they weren't caught in such a negative position as maybe some of the others that weren't as far along the continuum of technology. Next slide, please. So as we look at technology investments, the infrastructure really is essentially, it can be the equipment, but it's also the network. And that network, when you think about like all of us right now are accessing this conference call or this video conference by way of an internet connection, right? So as we move more things to the cloud, if we don't have the infrastructure, you got to kind of look at the house. You can't build a nice house if you don't have a solid foundation. And the foundation is that network. It says right there, like building a house, you need a rock solid foundation, otherwise the parts crumble. That's that's actually a quote from Nick Inger, our ATC's Chief Technology Officer. But I think it makes sense. It's a good analogy for everybody. If you don't have the infrastructure built, all these nice things that you might do out in the cloud, they're not going to be as accessible and certainly not going to be the same quality that you would have if you were working in your own office on your own local area network or what have you. Next slide, please. So as we look at being in this business 30 years, you know, it used to be maybe there's a thing called the OSI model. Layer 7 refers to the top layer, which is also known as the application layer. We used to build infrastructures based upon just transmission and the ability to kind of move the data. Now the conversation really is, what applications are you running to help take your business to a new level, whether that be ERP, whether that be QuickBooks, whether that be any variety of business line applications that you might have. Where does it make sense to house those? Who's going to have access to them? How important are they to your business? And then you kind of build everything from the application layer down. It used to be the opposite. It's kind of like start here and build up. Now it's kind of the opposite in terms of let's find out the applications that are mission critical to the business, and then let's build everything else around that. And you're going to make those technology investments as they apply to, you know, what you've ascertained from going through that process. Next slide, please. Cybersecurity and multi-layered security. I think most people are familiar with the firewall and what it does to protect the perimeter or the premises. I don't think folks in the past, maybe more so today as a result of COVID, do you think about people working out of their homes? Let's think about a child that's working from home, right? They're having their Zoom meetings all day long for school. And then you have an executive or maybe somebody else in the house, multiple kids that have multiple devices. So is it laptops, is it tablets, is it smartphones? And then you have maybe an executive that has a desktop set up at their home office, or maybe they're using a laptop. And you think about that mission critical sensitive data that an executive is transmitting back and forth to keep business moving through a work from home environment like COVID, and that person's on the same network as all those children and all those devices, and they're not always as selective in terms of what they're clicking on, right? So it puts you in a position where, you know, your data can be compromised. So what we're seeing more is a multi-layered approach to security, which means you still have your firewalls, but then you have a cloud-based technology play that oversees that has some capabilities and some visibilities beyond just a firewall. Because a firewall is more of a day one, day two, day three type protection device, as opposed to cloud, which is more day zero. So therefore, when you get, whether it be COVID or not, as you see more people working from home, you're going to have the need, excuse me, for greater greater protocols for security, and that's going to require a layered approach, and the cloud just makes sense. Can we go next slide, please? Or actually, I think the last one, sorry. So business to business or business to consumer, does it matter? Not really. I think you have the same things. You're gonna be, whether you're trying to reach your customers or whether you're trying to reach your own employees, whether you're business to business or business to consumer. I think at the end of the day, the things that we're going to talk about, the stories that Matt and Ty are going to share, and the input that Tracy's going to give, as well as a little of my own, you're going to see. I don't think it really matters whether you're B2B or B2C. These same principles are going to apply to helping people prosper by using technology. And I think that means I'm going to be passing it off to Matt Fisher, my good buddy Matt. Take it away.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. I'm happy to be here today. Curiosity is a full-service marketing agency serving clients here in Cincinnati and around the country and Canada. We are mostly B2C in terms of our communication that we create, and our full focus is being able to help our clients get to the market as quickly as possible with the messages that they feel are important for those brands to be able to do that. So about 2 years ago, so when we founded Curiosity, we outsourced our IT from the very beginning, and that was 10 years ago. So we used an outside provider to help us just manage our internal IT rather than hiring somebody inside to do that. And that has proved to be very efficient for us over the years. Well, about 2 years ago, they came to us and said, your servers are dying. And that's not what a CEO always wants to hear. And the next question is, well, what do I do? And they said, well, you could buy more servers, which will last about 5 years, or you may want to look at doing something else. At which point, as I would say, I'm not a tech savvy CEO. I realized that I needed help, and I needed to find some people who could help us understand what our options were and why we want to do the certain things that we wanted to do. We also sort of found ourselves half pregnant. We had already moved to the cloud for a lot of platforms for like HR. We use use Bamboo for accounting and finance, and program management. We're using Workamajig. We're using Strata for media. So we had all of these cloud-based platforms that we were already using, but we weren't doing that in terms of internally with the large graphic and video files that we were creating every day. We also found that we had kind of become data hoarders. We never threw anything out. And so the amount of material that we were storing from a data perspective was just huge. And we came to the conclusion that the 20-80 rule was still in effect, that 20% of that we were storing we use and 80% we don't. So it sort of forced us, it's like when one day you don't want to clean out your garage forever and ever and ever, you say, I got to clean out the garage, I got to clean out the garage, I got to clean out the garage. And then you actually start to clean out the garage and you realize, what do I have this for? And all these things. So we kind of went through that process. But we got great consultation and we looked at the world and we realized that we really did want to go to the cloud, mainly because while it was more expensive than buying more servers, at the end of the day, we felt it was going to be where the world was going anyway, and it was going to be what we should be doing just as a good business decision to allow us. Nobody had the idea that there was something going to be called COVID-19 or that we were going to have to deal with all the work from home. We already had a very generous work from home policy. We have a lot of young families and people, and it's just the nature of the way we work. But those decisions that we made a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, turned out to be a huge lifesaver for us when COVID-19 happened. So when March 12th happened and we sent everybody home, we didn't skip a beat. The work that we do is incredibly collaborative, and so we had adopted Google Documents. At any given time, you can go into a presentation and there may be 8 people in different parts of Cincinnati working on those documents and those presentations and the creative that's being created that's going to be presented to clients and then ultimately executed. So it's very exciting to see that kind of collaboration, and the efficiency and the speed component of being in the cloud has made us incredibly efficient, much more agile. And I would say the one thing coming out of COVID-19 is, as we've all seen, the world is so fluid the last 3 months that what is valid today may not be valid next week, especially from a marketing communications message. So our ability to move quickly for our clients is just super critical, and it continues to be that. And so by going to the cloud, we have all the security in the world. We can move as fast as we absolutely need to, and our crew is used to it, and they know how to collaborate from a distance, and it's been working really, really well.
So Matt, I know from walking that journey a little bit with you, there were some unintended consequences, right? Both positive and negative. Maybe you could touch on those.
Yeah, so the unintended, I didn't really understand that it was going to make us as fast and as efficient as it was going to be. I sort of intuitively understood that was going to happen, but we're able to do a lot more business with less people now, because so much was, it's sort of the old-fashioned, you'd sign a document, you'd leave it on somebody's desk, and it would wait for them to do something with it before it go to somebody else's desk. Now all of that is managed in the cloud and it moves through the system. So we have probably 900 open job numbers at any given time with work that's flowing through the agency, and that's a lot to keep track of. And so that allowed us to be able to get that work done much more quickly, much more efficiently, with high quality, on budget, on time. And so that's a very happy discovery, that while the initial investment was more than just replacing the servers we had, the efficiencies that we gained are far outweigh any of the investment that we had to make.
So I know in any company, you have some folks that are a little bit slower to adopt new technology, right? And the benefits that it brings. I think you might have somebody there that was a little slower moving on this migration that you made to the cloud. You want to touch on that? Because I'm sure the attendees are thinking, like, not everybody's on that fast track. You know, there are always going to be some that need to be convinced or kind of pulled along.
Yeah, we had a lot of internal debate about what this was going to be like, and especially for creative people and even senior executives who were very used to working in a certain way, set in their ways. The idea of doing this and not having what they perceived control over the documents or the files was daunting and scary to them. And so we really had to rely on our partners who were advising us to help us think through those things and help us realize that those were unfounded fears, that we actually have a lot more control being in the cloud. And that control allows us to actually interact together much more efficiently and quickly. And so there was definitely, some old dogs had to learn some new tricks, and I'm one of those. So, but it was a great decision.
Well, any unintended consequences that the others might want to know, give consideration to? Downtime maybe, or lost files, or
we've had no downtime. It's been seamlessly perfect, and we've got great redundancy if we have needs to do that. The other biggest issue is that we're on the top floor of our building, and our ceiling sometimes leaks. And I used to go home at night thinking, what happens if the server room gets flooded? And that's just an incredible nightmare. So this takes away all of those anxieties to be able to do that. And then I would also say it allows us to make technology decisions in a much more forward-thinking manner now. Now that we're very comfortable with where we are and what we're doing, we're actually helping with our clients to work through how can we make this whole process much more efficient for everybody and be able to do that. And we're seeing everybody coming along. We believe it gives us a competitive advantage in the marketplace because we can move so quickly, and agility is a hallmark of our organization. And so any agency that has not invested in the technology cannot move as quickly as we can. We feel that gives us a competitive advantage.
So I think as I hear you, that's really how technology is useful to you. Being able to use it and do certain tasks and so forth, like that's important. But that's, I think, when IT gets viewed as like a cost center, right? But now you're talking about your competitive differentiation, or at least one of them anyway, is your speed to market, right? Your ability to move faster than your competition. I mean, I think that's, as I get to where we're talking to C-level people, if you're talking to the IT folks, okay, they want to understand how things work, and it's more the zeros and ones and that kind of stuff. But when you're talking to somebody at your level, it's more about how can we get more business out of the same number of people? How can we differentiate ourselves from our competition? How can we drive costs down? How can we bring on, like in your specific case, I think you used to hire mostly people in Cincinnati, right? So now your workforce, I would assume, through this transformation to the cloud, as well as finding out what you can do in this work from home environment, I'm assuming now you can attract talent from all over the country.
We can find talent anywhere it is. And I think that if anything, COVID-19 has proved that even the workforce is going to be very fluid from now on, and we're going to be able to take advantage of that talent and not just have to depend on what's here in Cincinnati. And for us, that's amazing. You're right, we're looking for efficiencies and we're looking for competitive advantages. And when we get those efficiencies, it allows us to take that money that we would have been spending on overhead and put it towards training of our staff for leadership, management, or new skill training. So that even makes our employees feel like they're on a developmental plan, that they're learning and growing as an employee. So they're seeing the investment that we're making in them. Well, that money wouldn't be available if we hadn't created all these efficiencies to be able to go forward this way. And so that is a huge unintended consequence of doing this, which is it gave us freedom to really invest back into our company, into the people, which we also think combined with that technology gives us that competitive advantage.
That's good stuff. Thanks for sharing. As always, we appreciate you sharing your story. I think you're a little self-deprecating when you say you don't know technology. It seems like you got a pretty good grasp, or at least you just have the right people around you. One of the other, or both.
I have the right people around me. I will say that. I know left to be dangerous. That's it.
Spoken like a true leader. Thanks, Matt. So I think we yeah. So Ty, you're up.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Ty Dubé. I'm the COO of Mike's Car Wash. And if you indulge me for a second, I was going to give a little bit of the history of Mike's, just for people who don't know us as a company. Kind of helps to explain that, really from our founding back in 1948, our founders had this vision of being innovative, being creative, being entrepreneurial. So when we were founded in 1948, we were the 18th car wash in the US, using some modern equipment that really wasn't around very much. It was all new. It was all very innovative. There was a lot of equipment that had to be created, customized just for Mike's or just for the car wash. If you fast forward from 1948 to 1978, we actually totally reinvented the business. We were a full service car wash, which means we would do both the interior and exterior of the vehicle. But in the 70s, our two founders noticed that people were getting busier and busier. They had less time that was free to go spend an hour or two getting their car washed. So they saw this express exterior model and really thought that was the wave of the future, and it sure turned out to be. So in 1978, we reinvented the business from full serve to exterior only. And then you fast forward to 2015, and we took this nice private family company and for succession purposes, split it in half. So at 9 p.m. on Saturday night, it was one company. At 8 a.m. Sunday morning, it was two companies, two totally separate systems, servers, networks, PCs had to be moved between different domains. Fortunately, on the Mike side, we had a really outstanding, or have currently, a really outstanding IT director who really took an innovative approach to that split. He saw it as an opportunity not just to recreate what we had before, but to make things better. So the stat I love is we went from 258 software applications down to 32. Just rationalize things, looked at, what they were, how they worked. Maybe a piece of software could be replaced by something new or a new piece of technology. We moved a lot of that to the cloud, really taking advantage of that. And it allowed us to be more efficient and focused on washing cars, not standing up server farms and worrying about, a leaky roof ruining a bunch of servers. So that's kind of the corporate history. Today, we sit at 27 car washes across Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. We've maintained this slow, steady expansion model that's worked out really well for us. And one of the things that I think both the first generation and second generation of the ownership saw was that Mike's was really a forerunner of getting to scale in the industry. We saw that it was we had a lot of opportunities, a lot of advantages as we put multiple stores in one city. And had a chain of stores, so we could really take advantage of some of those efficiencies there. So most people think of a car wash as kind of a mop, a bucket, and some soapy water. And the next couple of slides hopefully convince you that it's a lot more than that. So service to our customer is really at the core of our company. I have fixed more flat tires, jump-started more batteries, pushed more cars down the street because that's what the customer needed than I think I have in my entire life. That's just part of what we do. It's a key part of our culture, serving that customer in any way possible. Our purpose statement I thought was pretty relevant. Providing the best value for our customer by providing a quick, clean car wash every time with a smile. So we look at technology as the means to enable that. How do we make that possible? On the left here, you've got a reverse osmosis unit, which delivers ultra pure clean water that we use in our final rinse to try to get all the spots, all those contaminants, any dirt particles off your car. The middle picture there is actually a belt system that we installed in 2016. Think of it like a moving sidewalk for your car. And as you know, car technology has really come along very quickly with anti-collision, self-driving. In a traditional car wash, if a car activates auto brake, that causes a lot of problems for the driver and for the car wash. So this belt technology is the way to really adapt to the going trend in cars to be more automated and to have more of those sensors. Car sensors don't always like a big piece of equipment or a piece of cloth flying at it, and so it tends to react that way. And so that belt technology is a great way to get ahead of the game and make sure we can continue to wash cars safely as cars become more and more automated. Then the right picture is one of 3 computer cabinets that we have at a single wash. So every piece of equipment is computer controlled. It's web enabled. We can access it through our mobile, and from here we can fine tune it to make sure that it's working properly and working at peak efficiency and delivering the best quality wash that we possibly can. We can also use it to find out if, to alert us if a piece of equipment is broken or maybe it's wearing out. So we can address that sooner rather than later, so we can ensure we're still delivering that best quality wash to each and every customer. So the last slide, I'll say these 2 pictures are not Mike's data. These are just dummy data that I put on here as an example. But we've really been trying to use technology to enable better serving the customer. As Tracy mentioned earlier, going beyond just that utility view of IT to that planner view. So what technology can we use to serve them better, whether it's a cleaner car, it's a more convenient location, it's different operating hours. We've looked at and implemented quite a bit of different technology. Things like looking at cell phone data as to the path to purchase prior to coming to Mike's, license plate recognition, even facial recognition, so that we can better tailor our wash to you as an individual. For wash quality, that's key. If we don't deliver a clean and dry car, then people won't come back. So the wash has got to be absolute top quality each and every time. So what processes and equipment can we implement to continue to improve it, continue to take it to the next step? Looking at soap measurement, how much soap do we put on each car? Is it too much? Is it too little? Can we detect if there's a leak or if there's a clog that might affect that wash quality? We've even done motion cameras to look at the line. So if there's, it's a busy Saturday and there's a few cars in line waiting, can we identify when maybe there's an issue or maybe they're a little bit short-staffed and we need to get that line moving faster? Again, speed of service is a key metric for us, for our customers. We know the customer wants to come in, quickly get their car washed and get on with their day. We're doing predictive maintenance. So for the equipment in the car wash, which there's a lot of equipment in there of all different types, can we predict when that will fail or when that will start to wear out so that we can replace it at night when we're shut down instead of on that busy Saturday when we have customers waiting? And at the end of all this technology, we have to make sure that we're serving the customer. So NPS score is our main means of doing that. We have other surveys and things like that, but our primary metric or KPI is NPS, Net Promoter Score. We're always in the mid to upper 70s, which is world class and just phenomenal, and a huge testament to our customers who think highly of us, and I think to our culture that focuses on making sure that those customers are happy for each and every time they come into the car wash. Then the last slide here, I just want to talk about COVID-19. Obviously, that was a huge wild card no one expected and caused really everyone and every company to really redefine their business and their processes. So we were actually shut down for 5 days. In those 5 days, we worked with local health departments to establish that we were essential businesses. A car wash was an essential business, and that we could serve the public by cleaning the outside of the car. If you go to the grocery store and you're wearing gloves and you're wearing a mask, and then you go back to the car and you touch your car handle, well, how many times do you touch your car handle before you, door handle, before you clean it? And especially if you think about Uber cars or police vehicles, those first responders, you have multiple people using those vehicles. And so by cleaning the outside of the car, we can help reduce the transmission of the virus. So we were shut down for about 5 days before we were able to open up the first few stores, and then we scaled it up from there. We had to change from accepting cash to going to credit card only. People were worried about transmission that way. So, doing credit cards only, doing that at a distance. for a company like ours that is so focused on really high touch customer service, how do you deliver that high touch customer service when you have to stand 6 feet away and you're wearing a mask, which kind of interferes with that interaction? So redesigning our sales process. And then the last bit there on the right hand side is a picture. So down in Florence, Kentucky, the health department showed up one day about 4 o'clock and told us that we were no longer allowed to be outside. All of our team had to stay inside the building. We're not allowed to be outside, which again, high touch customer service, in-person sales process, that was a bit of a challenge. So 4 p.m., they told us that by 6 p.m. we had redesigned our sales process and a lot of the processes for operating the car wash. By 8 a.m. the next morning, we had it implemented and we're washing cars. Huge testament to the team for adapting, thinking creatively. And then lastly, 2 days later, our IT department delivered a computer system that automated this. So the pieces of paper there were the handwritten notes from one team member just on the first day regarding customers, what wash they received or what wash they had paid for, and what make and model of car they were. So our IT team took all those pieces of paper, put it into a digital form, and it greatly improved the throughput and efficiency of that car wash. And they did it in all of 2 days. So huge kudos to them. I just thought, nice recent example of using technology to enable the business to keep running and to keep serving those customers.
So Ty, as an unlimited pass Mike's Car Wash customer, I see your folks with their white shirts and their ties, and I know you guys pride yourself on customer service. I see that from the app, right, that you guys have, and the data you might collect from there, as well as the emails that I get. And I was wondering, what technology might be you be using, regarding your app, regarding emails, staying in contact with your customers. How do you value one customer over the next, or the amount of business they might do with you, or what have you?
Well, I would say that, we really value them all equally. Each person has their own preference or buying style or need. And so between the unlimited monthly subscribers to our book sale customers to, just what we call a driveway customer who just drives up and pays cash as kind of a single transaction, we really value them all equally. But, we do try for the unlimited customers. We want to make sure that we have good quality data to contact them. So as our car wash had to adapt to COVID-19, we had to close and then reopen, and we reopened with some different operating hours. How can we let those customers know of the changes in the car wash proactively? And then from the data side, we always try to look to see buying habits. Maybe there's something we can do differently in terms of products offered, geography, hours of operation. Always looking for that next insight. Very much a big piece of our culture is never being content. Always looking for that next improvement, that next new development that we can launch, whether that's simply a wash product, like a new type of wash, or maybe it's a new soap in the car wash, or maybe it's a new app or new app functionality. That's really a key component of our culture at Mike's.
The other thing that I noticed is you guys do a lot of different work with nonprofits or charities. I noticed there are several different specials that you'll be running where you're taking a certain amount from each car wash and donating it to another party. Does technology have any kind of play in that at all?
Yeah, that's another thing that, really, I think our founders just did a wonderful job setting us up in 1948. So since that day, we have always given back to those communities that give to us and support us. So we average probably about one cause marketing event each month. We actually have 2 this weekend. So every time we open a new store, we do a free wash weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every wash is free. It's our best wash, $20 value, and it's free. Any money that we receive, a penny, a nickel, a dollar, whatever it is, we donate to a charity near that store. So on May 22nd, in the midst of coronavirus, we opened a store on Harrison Avenue over near Dent in Cincinnati. Opened a store, and we'll be doing a free wash weekend for that store this weekend, which supports Sweet Cheeks, which is a diaper bank here in Cincinnati. Now, last year, our store up in Beaver Creek was destroyed by the tornado up in Dayton, And that just reopened at the end of February. Because of Corona, we were not able to do that free wash weekend. So we're doing that one this weekend as well. And that's going to Four Paws, which does animal training for first responders and people who have special needs. So wonderful. Thank you for reminding me to mention that. But that's this weekend, free washes at those 2 stores, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's not a huge technology play there other than just getting the message out. You know, how can we get that in front of people so they understand that the event is happening and that, you know, we take no revenue. Every penny we receive, we give to charity. And at the end of the year, we donate more than $500,000 each and every year to charities, you know, throughout our operating area.
All right. Very good. Thanks for sharing that, Ty. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so as we move into the C-Suite challenge, that's my segment again. And we talk about companies have the rare opportunity to rethink old systems and processes and build for the future. My question is, as we made this transition to COVID, or we were forced to make this transition in more of a work from home environment, I'm wondering, what is that going to look like for most companies going forward? Do you think that they would be building into their infrastructures? Do you think they will be making moves to the cloud? Do you think that they'll learn from what happened this time? Because there were many folks, many businesses that kind of got caught in an awkward position of not really being able to efficiently and effectively work from home. So I'd be curious, if I could real quick, what are your thoughts on that, Matt or Ty or Tracy? Actually, maybe Tracy, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think people are going to really take it and explode with the ideas in order to get their businesses where they need to be, or do you think it's just going to get back in and do more of the same old, same old?
Based on the conversations I'm having, people are really thinking about changing everything from how we define jobs to processes to support the work. Folks that may have been reticent to do online document management, as Matt mentioned earlier, his company had adopted early on, others hadn't, but now they're seeing it really works. Of course, commercial real estate, I think, is going to change dramatically. I know of 2 organizations that have made significant changes in their requirements, that they were just in the throes of starting to look for new space, and now they've changed what that space is going to look like, so that they can have more co-working space, more space to bring larger groups together when they need to celebrate or do projects, and more flexible as opposed to individual workstations. So that and overall trying to balance, hey, we really figured out we're a lot more productive now. So how do we keep this going? But just like one of the questions we had is, how do you keep the culture if we stay remote, and how do we onboard? So I think those are the things people are going to be wrestling with, and I'm hearing lots of organizations making positive moves in those directions.
I think it kind of speaks to that last line on the bottom, right above the red line, right? Right combo of employee satisfaction as well as productivity, right? That's always the balancing act, right? I think most business owners, if they knew they could maintain the culture, if they could maintain the same level of efficiency, and they could have people work at home where they don't have to have, you know, all the square footage and all the insurance and all the other costs associated with that, they'd probably be game for that. But, you know, it's that balancing act. Can I get next slide, please? So I think we're going to see the C-Suite challenge is going to be, you know, how do we accelerate adopting the technology, right? I think the old, if it ain't broke, don't fix it mindset is just not going to work. It's not, I don't think it's going to get people in businesses where they need to be. And if you see the quote there, recent data shows that we have vaulted 5 years forward in consumer and business digital adoption in a matter of around 8 weeks, right? We can thank COVID from that. I think that, you know, if you believe in a silver lining, there's something good that comes out of everything. And this just might be it. Can I get the next slide, please? And I think Tracy already touched on this one here, right? Which is the C-Suite challenge of commercial real estate. What do we do? Do I want more space, or do we need more space because we're going to spread people out? Because it had gotten to where it was more open air, people kind of sitting next to each other, lively energy, but now or energetic, but now we're saying, well, you can't, maybe that's not a good healthy way of conducting business going forward. Excuse me. So are we going to spread these people out, get more people, or I mean, more space to house the same number of people? Or are we going to use the same amount of space that we have today and send some people home and then be able to spread people out? Or are we just going to say, you know what, we don't need all that space anymore. We have the tools. If we don't have the tools, we know they're available. We got to get to the right firm, get some assistance, land on the right technology, get some assistance in deploying it correctly, and then from there be able to take advantage of all the technologies that are available. I think right there's a good quote. I don't know, for those people that don't know Gartner, they're one of the main technology research firms in the world. And they say, excuse me, the survey revealed that approximately 25% of CFOs said they would move at least 20% of their on-site workers to permanent remote positions. Okay? How are you going to do that? Like, what technology is going to allow you to get there? Next slide, please.
Hey, David.
Yes.
Just comment on that. I think for any company to successfully really have a strong remote working program, they have to have strong measurement resources in place so that they can measure utilization and productivity of their employees, because that's the real measure of, can you be separate and still be together doing the work and being able to get the stuff done that you need to do. So I think program management for all firms is going to suddenly become something that's important. And some people may have resisted this for some period of time, but to truly utilize the advantages of the cloud, program management is a really key part of this.
Thanks for sharing that, Matt. Hey, I know we're falling a little bit behind here, so I'm going to speed through these. This one right here, we're talking about business continuity and disaster recovery. At the end of the day, you're going to have to be able to plan ahead for the next stay-at-home order. I don't think this is going to be the last virus that we see. I think businesses are going to be more apt to pull the trigger on things like that, as well as maybe health officials. So I think we're just going to make sure that you have the business continuity plans in place and the disaster recovery plans in place to make sure that regardless of what happens, you're still going to be able to conduct business in an efficient manner. Next slide, please. We talked about cybersecurity, so I'm not going to spend a lot more time on that. Collaboration sprawl. So shadow IT, pardon me, shadow IT includes infrastructure, tools, and technologies used by employees outside the control of the organization's IT team. So Forbes, on a quote that or a note that I have here, 71% of employees are using apps not sanctioned by IT. You're only going to see a lot more of that. I think the proliferation of what they consider shadow IT, which is somebody outside of IT bringing technology to the business, you're going to just see more and more of that. Next slide, please. So I think
for our Q&A, and Tracy, I think you were going to moderate that for us, because we have just a few questions in the chat box for this panel, and we're going to have to wrap things up. We're going to end on time at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, so we did have a few questions. So one of them, and it was directed towards Matt, but I think it's both. How do you onboard and cultivate relationships and keep the culture you want when it's work from remote, and particularly if you're recruiting from across the country and the world?
Well, that's a really good question. I don't have the answers to that yet, but I think it's probably the next big challenge for us, because we're close to being back into hiring mode. And when we're back in the hiring mode, how are we going to onboard them into our culture? So we have already put together a team here at Curiosity that's starting to look at that and try to understand how we would do that effectively.
I am hearing that from lots of folks, and how to do the training. In fact, Lisa and I had a conversation about that as well. It's difficult to get that training and interaction, but I think we're going to be able to leverage these collaboration tools. The progress that the companies have made on the collaboration tools recently, Microsoft Teams, what Zoom did, and how quickly they're responding is going to further support and help us advance in that area. So I think we'll continue to have to all move along at the same time.
When we're all allowed to move around the cabin again, I imagine we would bring people in for a couple of months, have them really live the culture for several months, and then they could go back and work remotely. So we'll figure it out. Of all the challenges, that's probably the most fun.
Yeah, that's a good problem to have.
Sorry, I was going to say for Mike's, historically, all of our hiring and training was done in person. So if we hired a new entry-level manager in Evansville or Fort Wayne, we would have them drive to Cincinnati to go through that training. Very in-person kind of handshake culture here at Mike's. So about 9 months ago, we started looking at some remote tools, which really helped us when COVID hit. So, you know, we still have that in-person culture and making sure we develop that strong bond and relationship. But a lot of times we're starting that through Zoom calls. And I think it's just making sure you do very careful hand-holding, be very explicit about, what you were worried about, what the team members were worried about, in indoctrinating them with that culture, even though it's through Zoom or a tool like this that's video conferencing. It's much better than a phone because you can actually see the person and get a little better, interpersonal relationship building, but it's still no substitute for that in person. So I agree that as things start to loosen up, it will be interesting to see when we can go back to in-person onboarding and training.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So one of the other questions, Matt, was how long did you spend on your project? You were talking about moving things and going from half pregnant to fully operational.
Well, we had to make some decisions pretty quickly because the servers were dying. So that caused us to move more quickly than I think our organization normally would in that situation. We didn't go to some of the big players like Amazon or Microsoft. We went to one that was right size for us, and that was a great recommendation to find the right partner that fits your culture and that will help you. That you will be a big fish to them, and that's an important piece of that thing. But we had one employee who's dedicated to just transferring all the files and redoing the nomenclature of naming all those things. And I would say that took us 6 months, but a majority of it was done in 4 months. So what we thought was going to be an incredibly daunting process ended up being labor intensive, but fast.
So I know we're coming close to time, and Lisa has some things to wrap up. We had a few other questions about what are you doing with your design files and the data storage, and how do you deal with versioning? Those questions are fairly specific to the tool and your business, as well as a question that I know David would be happy to address from one person who indicated they did a good job of getting their IT vendor and moving remotely, but they had problems with phones not providing the services that they needed. And knowing that those services vary dramatically by organization, I would suggest that be a great conversation after today's event. And I will let Lisa wrap us up.
Yeah, and thank you, Tracy. And to make that easy for everybody, at the end of the program today, as soon as that recording link comes to me, I'll be sharing that with all of you, along with contact information for each of our panelists today. And I just want to thank all of you. You did a terrific job coming forward and sharing your stories and your expertise. For the rest of our panel, if you could go ahead and put yourself on mute, because we're getting some feedback. Thank you. Tracy, I think the feedback's coming from your line. If you could mute, thanks. Just in conclusion today, I want to let you know the Goering Center's plan to continue to provide you with the great programming that you've come to know us for. And going forward, furiously, our team is working this summer and to meet you where you are. So I was very pleased to see that many of the people answered yes in the chat box when I asked, are you ready to come back to face-to-face interaction? I certainly am too. Kroger's isn't doing it for me anymore. I need a little more than that. So going forward, when we bring back our live events, those will also be streamed. So for people who want to come together live, super, you're going to have an option. For people who want to watch remotely, live in the moment as it's going on, perhaps bring your team together and do it over lunch. You'll have that option available as well. And then all of those things are going to be recorded, and warehoused on our website. So you'll have access to it a third way if you prefer to view at midnight. So just so you know, we're adapting and changing to meet all of your needs. And because that is the way of the world, folks. It's going to come at us faster and faster. And those of us who are resilient and prepare for resiliency is really, I think, the key. It's what made it work for Ty and for Matt. And we'll make it work for all of you as well. So from the Goering Center, thank you all for your time. Thank you again, panel. We're going to end today and have a super week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.